Money does bring happiness, but only when it helps other people. Hello friends, I'm sure that each of us has heard about duty-free shops, which tourists from all over the world simply love to visit. But what do you personally know about the founder of this brand? And does the name Charles Feeney say anything to you? Many know him as one of the richest people in the world, who has an incalculable wealth, but at the same time, many also consider him a very greedy person who'd never spend an extra cent. All kinds of rumors about him have been around for a long time, and in the circles of billionaires, he is considered rather stingy. Or to be more precise, was considered. At the same time, only a few know what kind of person he is, and what his biography has been hiding for many years. And I'm sure, friends, that this story will definitely surprise you. Charles Feeney was born in 1931 to an Irish-American family in Elizabeth, New Jersey during the Great Depression. After graduating from school, he joined the army, like all young people from poor families, and soon took part in the Korean War. When he returned home, having received compensation for military merit, the man decided to enter the Cornell School, which trained staff for hotels. And a few years later, our hero graduated with honors. In order to make something of himself and get on his feet, the determined young man went into business in 1956. Namely, he began to sell tax-free alcohol to sailors of the Atlantic Fleet of the U.S. Navy. And interestingly, the enterprising young business used to get information about the ship's next destination from women of easy virtue, because they knew exactly when the sailors would arrive at the port. Such a business quickly gained momentum, and Feeney soon decided to expand it. To do this, he went to France, where he opened his first duty-free shop. Of course, many considered him to be crazy, saying that it wouldn't work. But surprisingly, a small duty-free shop began to gain popularity with Japanese tourists who bought almost the entire range and actually left the shelves empty. The thing was that a powerful jumpstart came in 1964, when Japan allowed its citizens to travel abroad again. This ban was introduced after World War II. Duty-free shoppers sold cigarettes, cognac, souvenirs, and bags to Japanese tourists. And in just 1 year, the store earned its first million. Overwhelmed by his success, Feeney quickly realized that his store was mostly associated with vacations. When flying on vacation aboard, people were buying alcohol and sweets in the store for the holidays. And after the vacation was over, they always stopped by the store to get gifts for their relatives. Perfumes, cosmetics, and alcoholic drinks were especially popular. Thus, realizing that this type of shop could be popular in every airport or port, Charles began to clone them one by one. Thus, he soon opened his stores in his homeland in the USA and then began to expand his business around the world. In just a few years, the owner of Duty Free made a huge fortune, and the business was going so well that having decided to open a store on the small island of Saipan in the Pacific Ocean in 1976, Feeney built an entire airport there. He did that just in order to build his own store there. Strange, isn't it? But the whole point is that even a small shop at the airport paid for the construction of the entire airport in just a few years. Moreover, his business on the island doubled several times. But despite his success, the world learned about Charles Feeney only in 1988. It was then that, according to Forbes, Mr. Feeney turned out to be one of the richest people in the United States and took 31st place in the ranking. After that, Feeney himself said disappointedly, "Well, that's it. Now we are in public view." But as it turned out, Forbes was very wrong. Shortly after the Forbes publication, journalists were following in the footsteps of the businessman, who in their opinion, was supposed to live in luxury apartments, dress in luxury boutiques, and have a dozen luxury cars in the garage. However, to their surprise, Mr. Feeney did not fit this description in any way. Instead of an expensive mansion, the man rented a modest apartment. Instead of his own Maybachs, he took the subway and bought clothes at sales and in the most ordinary stores. Of course, the media immediately decided that the businessman was exceptionally greedy and simply kept his money in the bank at high interest rates. But they couldn't have been more wrong. The thing was that the businessman's fortune was listed only on paper, but in fact, all his personal money had long been transferred to other accounts. It was then that the most interesting thing happened. It made a public outcry all over the world, after which people learned the name of this person. After a series of journalistic investigations, it turned out that Charles Feeney wasn't hiding his wealth in the bank, because for 30 years, he had been donating huge amounts to charity. And what was most interesting, he never advertised it and always remained an anonymous donor. Charles didn't see the point in making a show out of his charitable work, and no one would have known about it at all if there hadn't been a simple mistake in the system. When a man made a donation for some medical research, someone's oversight showed the name of the sender, and the amount was $100 million. And it was then that Charles Feeney immediately became known as the most generous person. As it turned out later, during his life, the man donated over $12 billion for the development of medicine and science, to orphanages and nursing homes, to refugee aid funds, and for many other needs. More than 100 orphanages, schools, and other important facilities were built thanks to his donations. And the number of lives saved by this man, according to experts, has long exceeded 1 million. After all, it is thanks to Feeney's help that a huge number of hospitals around the world can perform operations on children from poor families. One of Charles's greatest prides is the University of Limerick, home of the Irish World Academy, which is used for the physical development of hundreds of children. At the same time, 13,000 students study at the university itself, and absolutely free of charge. This institution is one of the best in Ireland and owes its existence solely to Charles, who invested $170 million in it. The businessman put in a lot of effort to make sure that regular people could feel his help. For example, he financed surgeries for children from poor families, which turned to him for help personally. And what's most interesting, no one knew about it except his closest people. Charles spent virtually no money on himself because he believed that he already had everything he needed in this life. Being a millionaire, he still leads a rather ascetic life. He prefers to only fly in economy class, carries documents in a plastic bag, and doesn't dine in expensive restaurants, but in cafes and fast food places. Can you imagine that? Feeney has never even had a personal car, and he still lives alternately in 3 apartments owned by the company. Of course, his relatives don't limit themselves in terms of money. His ex-wife and children live in luxurious mansions, but as the man himself said, "I simply realized one thing. They have nowhere to grow, and they don't understand the meaning of this life. Having reached unprecedented heights, I realized that wealth also has side effects. My family had nothing to aspire to. My children were bored because they no longer needed to achieve anything. Everything I taught them was impossible to achieve with such a huge fortune. So I just gave each of them a certain amount and let them go." Being at a very advanced age, Feeney actively promotes his philosophy and encourages the rich not to wait until they become old to share their wealth with those in need. Giving is much more fun now than when you're dead, the man says. Today, he is already 90 years old, and he regrets only one thing, that he will not live to see the end of his projects. When the secret of the anonymous benefactor was revealed, it turned out that Feeney even inspired Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, the richest people in the world, with this example. They donated half of their wealth to charity, following his example. In 2020, during a Zoom conference, Charles said that he will donate all of his remaining money to charity and leave this world without a single cent. Then he admitted that hoarding is not for him. Money does bring happiness, but only when it helps other people, Feeney said, adding that he is a happy person and wants to share happiness with others. Charles always avoided public life and glamorous parties, and the best confirmation of this is that until 2012, there were only 5 interviews with him. But after the world learned about this amazing person, his achievements have been regularly covered in the media. I just realized that money doesn't make me happy, and why does a person need it if he doesn't share happiness with others? Amazing, right? Charles Feeney, who was born into a poor family and is a truly self-made man, spent his whole life and all his money to make our world a little better, all the while limiting himself even in basic things. At the very least, he deserves to be known by as many people as possible. And I really want to believe that the example of Charles Feeney will become viral and get others to join in. Friends, how do you personally feel about the decision of this man and his philosophy of life in general? Be sure to share your opinion in the comments. And that's all for today. Rate the video if you liked it, and see you soon.